Ask Reddit. What is the most wholesome thing you have seen? Was headed to Oakland from San Francisco through the tube. Trains packed as always. People on BART are good about public transit etiquette in general during commute hours, so nobody's talking or listening to music or anything. When we leave the tube onto the viaduct over the port, one guy answers his phone. Hello, yeah, oh my god, what hospital? Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. He hangs up and just looks super distraught. Someone taps him on the shoulder and says, my car is parked at West Oakland, do you need a ride? Was headed to Oakland from San Francisco through the tube. Trains packed as always. People on BART are good about public transit etiquette in general during commute hours, so nobody's talking or listening to music or anything. When we leave the tube onto the viaduct over the port, one guy answers his phone. Hello, yeah, oh my god, what hospital? Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. He hangs up and just looks super distraught. Someone taps him on the shoulder and says, my car is parked at West Oakland, do you need a ride? My last week of high school, our lunch lady gave out small gifts to some of the seniors, just the kids that took the time to chat with her that she got to know more personally. I received a sketchbook with a sweet good luck note in it. I was always in art club and was going to school for fine arts, so she took the time to get all of us a gift that was specific to us. This lady saw hundreds of kids a day and still took the effort to get to know us. When I was a preschool teacher, we had one kid who was our certified cheer-upper. If someone was crying, she'd get a tissue, walk over, carefully blot their eyes and make them blow their nose, all while saying, "It's okay, you're okay." Eventually they'd stop crying, she'd take their hand and they'd go play. She was a lil angel. Seeing my 4-year-old nephew share his peanut butter sandwich with his friend at the playground. Edit, thank you stranger for my first gold. My dad and I were at a stoplight a few blocks away from a grocery store and a homeless man was sitting on the curb. I would have given him some money, but the road was pretty busy. I watched a guy with 2 huge bags of groceries walk up the street and give them to the homeless man's smiley face. It was such a kind gesture I almost cried right there in the car. I gifted a used electric wheelchair to a family who couldn't afford one. The kid, maybe 14 years old, was kinda grumpy looking when he arrived, didn't say much. Once we got him in the chair and he was zooming around, he was all smiles. His mother was also super happy. I heard the next day he told his sister to clear off the driveway so he could practice with it, and by the weekend he had gone to a fair. My 2-year-old nephew giving his 4-month-old sister, my niece, kisses constantly. He won't give anyone else kisses but her. He can barely even speak but clearly already loves his baby sister. It's so adorable. I have 2 nieces. At little one's birthday her friend gave her 2 unicorn toys. She immediately looks at big sis with a huge smile. Look big sis. This one for you, we can both play. She was genuinely so excited to play unicorns with her sister and it never even occurred to her that didn't need to give one to her. My heart grew 3 sizes that day. I read a story once about a woman whose father had died before her wedding and his organs were donated. The man who received his heart walked her down the aisle. A little boy at the airport kept trying to climb over a concrete divider that had active traffic on the other side. His mom was loaded with luggage and kept trying to stop him, but didn't have free hands. My brother-in-law walked up and said, "Hey kid. There's a rule here. You have to keep 1 foot on the ground at all times. Look around, everyone has at least 1 foot on the ground." The kid kept trying to climb, but with 1 foot firmly glued to the ground he wasn't in danger anymore. Such a creative and wholesome way to let the kid keep playing while keeping him safe. I was in the local supermarket doing my shopping. I was pushing my cart in the frozen food section when I came across a young woman in her 20s, I'm estimating. Her little girl, I think around 2 years old, was sitting in the cart she was pushing. She was beautifully cooing to her little girl, "I love you. I love you," among other sweet things and sounds. Now, I never met this young lady. I never talked to her, just watched her treat her daughter very sweetly with all the love in the world. It was the most nicest thing to see and experience because my own upbringing was a living hell. My parents broke up when I was young, around 5 to 6 years old. Mother got custody of us kids and she was a mentally ill, abusive, psychotic monster. I never knew a scene like that in my own life. All I got from my mother is daily yelling, screaming, cursing, nagging, and hitting. On more than one occasion she told me to my face how she wished I was never born. I just knew, with a kind, loving mother like that in her life, that little girl was going to grow up into a nice, normal, happy human being. Having a mother like that makes all the difference in the world. This is more heard than seen, but I was spending the night at my mom's house for Christmas. Her birthday is on the 25th and we usually go to a movie for it, so it was just easier for me to spend the night so we could go out the next day. Anyway, it's about 2 a.m. and I'm outside having a cigarette, when suddenly I hear one of the neighbors yelling, "What are you doing outside? Get your butt back in." Immediately after I hear a kid yell in protest, followed by, "Dad, I just wanted to see Santa land on the roof." This kid snuck out of bed and out of the house at 2 in the morning when it was probably like 20 F outside, just so he could see Santa. It was really adorable, and also pretty hilarious. Wasn't me but my grandfather, who was in the military, told me a story on how his friend in Vietnam made food, toys, and helped this community from the Viet Cong, pushing the community down south more and more until he was shot twice in the chest and once in the head. My grandfather took his friend's dog tags to give back to his family. After his family refused them back, he kept them, still has them to this day. Bit of a backstory. My pregnancy had been difficult and I was worried for my unborn child. A 20-week scan showed it was looking like my baby had a birth defect, but we would only know the full extent when he was born. Being in a vulnerable state, I was looking for hope. As is the case with these things, I turned to woo. I bought a large crystal necklace, it was a beast of a thing, and put all hopes that this would save my baby. My husband is not the spiritual type and told me up front that it was a pile of nonsense, poop, but if it made me happy to wear the thing, it might as well have been attached to my skin. That thing never came off. Moving along to the birth. Bit of a backstory. My pregnancy had been difficult and I was worried for my unborn child. A 20-week scan showed it was looking like my baby had a birth defect, but we would only know the full extent when he was born. Being in a vulnerable state, I was looking for hope. As is the case with these things, I turned to woo. I bought a large crystal necklace, it was a beast of a thing, and put all hopes that this would save my baby. My husband is not the spiritual type and told me up front that it was a pile of nonsense, poop, but if it made me happy to wear the thing, it might as well have been attached to my skin. That thing never came off. Moving along to the birth. One time I saw my elderly neighbor bring out a saucer of milk for a stray kitten. My dog was barking at it when she noticed it, so she went inside and came back with a little dish to lead it away from the sidewalk. It was all very cute and heartwarming. When I first had foster children placed with me after bedtime, my pit bull would go into each room and check on the kids and then sleep in the hallway. If any woke crying in the night, she would crawl into bed with them. When my youngest was 2/3, he slept in bed with me. I woke up one night to him not there. I panicked and looked around. He was laying and sleeping cuddled next to my oldest son. I'm a record producer. On a particular song the client wanted a child's voice to open it, so the bassist's 10-year-old son came and recorded a vocal part. Once we wrapped, the singer said to the kid, "Musicians get paid," and he handed the kid a 20-pound note. The bassist then did the same. A small gesture maybe, but in our world making a living is hard, and it was amazing to see professionals showing how it ought to be. Yesterday at work my boss's 5-year-old daughter was drawing a picture for me and said, "This is you, a princess," and I thought my heart would combust because that was just so sweet. She proceeded to make a little collection of drawings, which she folded into a book, and gave it to me. It was all hearts and rainbows. That was just absolutely wholesome and made me appreciate little kids. Made my day, to be honest. So my mom is like a walking charity that can essentially do no harm. She has her flaws, but she does her best. Anywho, this is a story on how she shares things. Just this week, we were at the supermarket and she saw we had forgotten our plastic reusable bags, so I went to get them. When I came back and gave them to her, she took out 2 of the more expensive ones and gave them to this lady that was with her kid, and TBH, how she did it was so nice. She saw she didn't have the budget to buy the bags, I guess, so she just gave them to her. And the lady was so grateful. Another time, she gave away a pendant to a girl with Down syndrome that I'm sure was expensive. I don't keep track of what she buys, but it was on the expensive side of the box that day, and the girl was so happy. When one of my family members was suffering from depression and wouldn't come inside or talk to any of our family, my neighbor and my family member's best friend just sat next to him on the curb outside for 2 hours to keep him company. My oldest son, he was just getting the where he could sit up well and bend over, set back up all on his own. My wife was in the shower, I had him on the bed. I noticed he started pulling at a pillow, so I pulled it over in front of him. He laid face down on it for a second. I thought, wow, he must be tired, and just before I grabbed him he sat back up and smiled the biggest gummy grin ever. Then he did it again, and again. Then it suddenly hit me, he's playing peekaboo. So he did it another time, and when he sat up I said peekaboo, and he laughed and smiled. I am a fairly rigid guy that doesn't get emotional or worked up about much, but that broke me down and lifted my spirits all at the same time.